So, welcome, sisters. We're so excited to be here. We have some potent codes for you today that are really going to support you as you, really connect into unhooking from the fallen grids within the online coaching and mentorship matrix. And so, hi, if you are new to flowing with me, my name's Alasia, and I'm here with my beautiful sister, Jenna, and we're really excited to co-create today and to bring forward all that is going to be in the highest to support you, your mission, and your reclamation within your voice, and your leadership as well. Hi, Jenna.
I'm so happy to be here. And yes, we are going to have such an incredible conversation today. And if you're new to me and my work, my world, my name is Jenna Faye Madden, founder of what is known as the Resourced Woman. And it really is such a blessing and an honor to get to co-create with my beautiful sister Alasia and the Sanctuary of Sophia, because we have both been witnessing, kind of studying, I would say, observing what has been going on beneath the surface in the online world. We've both noticed, and I know lots of our community, our clients have also been noticing and even contributing to moving the conversation forward of what's kind of being dismantled in the coaching industry, where there's a lot crumbling right now. There's a lot of false idols, guru worship, these things that are happening, and just a lot of smoke and mirrors. There's so many of us, I dare say all or most of us, who have had, quote, negative experiences in the online world in the form of lessons and initiations, opportunities for us to all move through. And so there's a lot of collective chatter and conversation around ethics and integrity and, under promising and over delivering, toxicity. And to me, this is all very important conversation, but it's also just the beginning. It's like just scratching the surface of what's actually underneath all of that. And this is where we have found there isn't really much conversation that's happening right now about the deeper false light, the siphoning of power, and the more energetic nuance that's been going on, and all of these little subtle hooks that have been lowering our power, our essence, our leadership as women, as well as the fact that this isn't just about talking about what's wrong in the industry. That's just talking about more of the same. It's like talking about what's wrong with the government and then expecting it to change. It's like we all know on the New Earth timeline, we're here to build new architecture. We're not just trying to renovate something that was never designed to really work and empower people. And so there's a lot going on in the industry energetically right now. And so this feels like a bigger conversation. This is also what led us to creating the Unhooked program and experience, where women are really coming together to do the deeper work, because it's not just you or me, it's all of us who are actually re-gridding and creating this new grid for what the standards are and how are we leading in different ways from this point forward that are rooted in sovereignty at the end of the day. So I'm so excited for us to have this conversation. Based on all of this, where do you want to go first?
Yeah, so good. Thank you so much. I'm just feeling all of that. And I think as we kind of open the flow, it feels good to express the intention, because while there is a lot of chatter and talk about, everything you just said around the ethics and the integrity and all of those pieces, what's really not being shared is the energetics and the spiritual agreements that people make when they enter into a space with a person, with a container, where that container, that person is actually not co-creating in divine will, where they're actually sourcing from an energy that isn't actual organic source frequency from the Godhead. And it isn't actually a sovereign energy that they're co-creating with. It actually has its own agenda. And then therefore that influences what that person creates, what they speak into the field, what they're coding the field with. And then everyone who is being influenced by them is then getting those messages and is subtly taking those in and unconsciously or consciously agreeing with, this is the way it is, this is how I have to operate, this is what I need to do. And then those conversations are flowing through the field and people are subscribing to them, whether it's a conscious subscription or not. But what you consume, what you take in, that does impact and influence you. And then from there, what are you co-creating with? And I think it's really important that as women, we're really noticing, where am I sovereign in my expression, and where am I outsourcing my power to, and what kind of spaces am I participating in where maybe the leader, the facilitator of that space isn't actually energetically sovereign and isn't cultivating a field of sovereignty and isn't actually tending with the organic source light frequency, the light of Christ Sophia, but instead collaborating with energies that are connected into fallen grids, fallen timelines that are actually suppressing whoever's in that space to give their power away and to keep feeding the machine. And unfortunately, what I've been tracking and noticing over the last several years as God sent me into this realm, into these spaces, to be able to receive this intel. Of course, I didn't know that at the time. It's been a deep process, right? But of understanding the energetics of people coming into a space deeply wanting to be mentored, receive support on their mission, on what they're here to do, their spiritual journey as well. That's a whole other space to speak into of, right, hijacking the organic ascension, a process based on the energies you're interacting with. But people genuinely want to improve, and then going into spaces and then essentially having experiences that kind of redirect their consciousness into realms that are taking them, unfortunately, out of like alignment, really. And the thing I want to say before we go into the deeper pieces, because I know we're solution oriented here, is you can always come back into alignment. There's nothing that God can't do to bring you back into alignment, no matter how maybe deep in you got into these spaces where you realize, oh shit, this mentor, this person is actually actively practicing black magic and is actually putting spells on people and manipulating people behind the scenes in conversations. You're watching it happen on calls where people are just like kind of getting under this spell energy. No matter where you've kind of gone through and noticing that someone was really practicing these things and maybe they actually aren't rooted in, sourcing to divine intelligence, you can always come back and realign. So as you're witnessing these things, and I know we both have been sharing content around this, it's really important to know that you can come back into realignment. You can break all these spiritual agreements. You don't have to be connected to anyone or anything that you feel has been operating within these false light realms. And you can actually truly come back and clean up your field, realign with your organic voice, and move forward from here. And that's what we're facilitating inside Unhooked. And that's really the intention, is to help you kind of remember who you are, reclaim, know that you don't have to outsource any of this. And there is a way forward where, like Jenna said, we're coming together to really rebuild this new grid system. And that's where the transfer of power is happening. So no matter where you're at in the current process, there's always a way to realign, and God will help get you out of those spaces. You just have to make the decision that you don't want to participate in them. That's it. And then from there, we move forward. So I think that's important, because we don't want to feed like, oh, I'm hooked in, now I can't get unhooked. It's like, no, that's actually not true. But that's part of the psychosis within these spaces, that once you're in, you can't unhook, or you just have to completely opt out entirely, right? Going into isolation, which we were just talking about in our audio. So I feel like that's important to also set the tone as we go deeper into sharing what's here today.
Yeah, I so agree with all of this, and I think an important thing as well is we always have a choice, and we also have a choice to not surround ourselves with things like shame for decisions that we've made from where we were maybe at in moments, or things that we didn't see. I know I personally have been in containers where you kind of have that feeling where like, how did I not see this before? Or, oh, we feel like shame, like, oh, I made a stupid decision or a bad investment. Like these things I hear a lot. To which I say, there's always something gold to extract out of this, like to receive from the experience. There's always something there. A lot of the time in these things, it's like a lesson, an initiation. And honestly, I think one of the things that isn't talked about that often is the witnessing. A lot of us have been sent, and we didn't consciously know it, obviously, in those moments, to witness a lot of what has been going on so that we can build this new architecture. Now, that being said, once you come to a place of consciously seeing and having the awareness, you can start calling back your power. You can start unhooking yourself. You don't have to continuously and perpetually be in a loop of like, I just have to be witnessing all of these things. But if you're kind of trying to make sense of like, why did I go into that space and like, ugh, and you get the ick, or you've had these things, or you see stuff in your feed, if you zoom out for a minute, there's definitely some witnessing potential of like, why is it being shown to you? Why are you someone who's able to see what 99% of people in this online world are still not really seeing? And they're not seeing like the deeper depth of it that you are. Like, I received a beautiful message today from a sister who's joining us inside of Unhooked, and the sentiment of her message was basically, I've been seeing all of this. I felt really alone because I feel like nobody else is talking about this. I've been actively dismantling it and starting to talk about it, but it's like, where do I go from here? What do I really say? And so there are so many of us who have started to not only see like the 3D surface layer toxicity of like some of the dynamics and like the popular girl club, the it girl, the, over promising, under delivering, all of that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of us who are actually seeing like the deeper things that are going on here in terms of the false light, the infiltration, the literal black magic, like Alasia spoke to, where I've had so many women message me and they're like, yeah, I was in a container and so and so like literally starts casting black magic and everybody's like eating it up. And I'm like, what? Am I crazy? Like we are so quick to gaslight ourselves, I feel like sometimes, whether we're at an in-person event and experience and everybody's like gobbling it up, but you're like, I'm not feeling what everybody else here seems to be feeling. And that doesn't mean that you are better than somebody else. It's not a hierarchy, but there's definitely an important thing that's happening there when we're actually able to, from a place of neutrality, because that's a big part of what we're doing in Unhooked, is removing the shame, but also not like overly identifying by, like, we're not here to be saviors of the coaching industry or something, any of us, but the neutral, loving witnessing, where this is where we move away from a lot of this loop that's happening in the online space, like the cancel culture and the call out and the Reddit threads and all these things where, of course, everybody does deserve to be like seen and held and witnessed in experiences that they may have had. And at the same time, that isn't really creating like the end result. Like, it doesn't just end there. If people are just looping around talking about what's wrong, then we're not necessarily rebuilding, or, even it's not even a rebuild. It's just a new build of what is coming next from there. And this is where I feel like people are actually still swirling, is kind of what I visually see in this matrix that is actually keeping a lot of us still lowered in our power and our potential, and away from our sovereignty rather than towards it. And to what Alasia you were saying before, like, a lot of the simple distinction is this moving me towards greater sovereignty and expression of my truth, or is this, whatever it is, a coaching container, a mentor, a piece of content we're consuming, is it moving me further away from that, where it starts to get a little foggy, or you start to doubt yourself a little bit more? And I feel like this is the more subtle stuff that happens that we're not necessarily consciously thinking about, even if we're at a place of consciousness where you can kind of see the overall grid of what's happening.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful, sister. These are all really important points. And I think that's one of the key indicators is, right? I always say too, it's like this tracks totally of like, is it moving you closer to God or further away? Like the God within your God relationship, like connecting to the organic true source frequency, the organic timeline, like the highest timeline. Are you in a space where it's really about breaking through, and it's not also just about the truth of like feeding the money making machine of like just make as much money as you can with the least amount of effort, and not actually genuinely caring about the person's transformation. It's just another cog in the wheel. And I know I wrote that in my post because that's a really important thing to take note of as well, that if people are hooked into this system, the grid that is powered up by everyone that's plugged into it, is just wanting to keep people in it. And so it's connected into these like lower energies of just like harvesting for money, keeping people hooked in, feeding on that. And then also it's like, where is that money going? Gosh, I'm starting to sneeze because I can feel the black magic coming through as I speak into this grid. It's like, phew, it's like, where is that money? Like, how is that money being channeled, right? Is it like
Where is it
organic?
circulating? Where's it
Yeah,
going?
where is it going? And like, this is an important thing too, because this is what God was showing me about this. It's like, hey, if you support someone who's actively like just building their business off of inorganic frequency, false light, AI, they're not actually in like sovereign God relationship with themselves, with the creator. It's like, you're essentially like feeding money into something else and you're circulating money into that. And we've all done it. These are all experiences that we've had. It's a sticky space, and it takes a lot of Holy Spirit discernment to move through. And sometimes you will be sent into these places like we've talked about to like understand how it works, and also what you don't want to bring in if you are also a mentor that's holding space, and what you want to bring into in terms of energetics and alignment and intentionality within the space that you're holding and what you are interfacing with. And I think as part of this, it's really important to have the conversation around the AI systems, because when someone is interfacing more with AI and is communicating and receiving artificial intelligence, that's what AI is, rather than divine intelligence, that's what's flowing into the field. That's what they're co-creating with, and they're co-creating with AI when it comes to like how to coach this person, how to mentor this, how to build this, right? Like we were having this deeper conversation earlier around the purposes of AI and also how God is using AI to awaken humanity and to really show the distinction between organic frequency and AI frequency, between the organic living light of Christ, divine intelligence, and artificial intelligence. And so with this uptick of put all your stuff into AI, put your body of work into AI, and just let AI spit out these things. And then it's really easy. It's like, it's very alluring. It's very tempting. This like synthetic pull of like, this will make it easier for you. Just outsource your voice, right? But then the thing is, you are allowing that into your fields. It's reading your field. It's noticing where the hooks are, where your wounds are. It's playing that and it exploits it. And that's a real conversation that needs to be looked at, because if you are co-creating with AI in a way where you're giving your power away to it and you're inviting it into your consciousness and the deepest realms of your own creation and your own musings, and you're allowing that to come in, and then you start interfacing with that more than your own self and your organic consciousness and relationship to God's source, then you're starting to co-create with the AI timelines. And you really want to inventory, is that something that you want to do or not? And if you're in a space with someone who's not actually contemplating these things and they're just like flooding the space with AI, you're going to feel that in your fields. It's going to feel like shit. It really is, especially if you are here to really connect in with the organic new earth frequency. You're going to feel that subtly. It's going to build up. It's going to be like a disease building in the body where you're like, I don't feel good. Something's not right. And that's where it's like, you get to clean up that energy. And even if that leader is not aware of it, you as a leader get to decide, do I want to interface with this person anymore and their work because it doesn't feel good in my fields? So these are just all things to contemplate and to really recognize what's actually happening in the greater landscape, which isn't being talked about, because most people don't understand the nuances of it unless they're, like I said before, like a seasoned grid worker who really understands the intricacies of how the AI timelines are affecting humanity's true new earth, heaven on earth timeline, and the war on that, truly. Yeah.
Yeah, and how I see each woman in her sovereign leadership is if we kind of use a grid work in terms of the grid on earth kind of dynamic, I really see, when we're working at different points on the grid and how we know that impacts the greater grid in a business online landscape kind of context with this grid. I see each of us as basically like a node. And so our business, our temple, our leadership of who we are, what we're building and creating is a node that is rippling out there. And so being very discerning on how we lead, who we interact with is of like utmost importance right now, where we're here at a time where being in our organic, pure channel and creation has never been more important, especially for those who really see themselves as thought leaders. And to me, I see AI as like a non-black and white kind of thing. To me, it's a neutral in many ways, but also can be very nefarious tool that is available to us that is, at the end of the day, and you and I were talking about this before we hit record, who runs these AIs? Well, it's the same greater control grid and matrix that is literally here to, surveillance state, control people, all of these things. So when we're aware of that, no different than, say, me choosing to have a driver's license or me choosing to go into the grocery store. It's like we can still choose to interact with things and kind of come at it from a neutral place, but it still requires a lot of discernment to me in how we're doing that to really notice where our energy is going and like what, if anything, is in alignment for us. And don't just like assume because everybody's using AI that it's like, I have to use it too in order to keep up. Like that's one of the biggest stories, false stories I might add, that I see in the online space where it's like, if you're not using AI, you're not going to be moving fast enough. You're not going to be able to keep up. And I'm like, that is literally false light distortion right there. And this is coming from someone who, unlike Alasia, I use AI. And I feel like consciously and in a way temporarily, like where I use it within certain ways. Do I use it to coach my clients? No. Do I, use it to create my programs? No. Do I use it to write my content and like be my voice? No. Do I use it for certain like behind the scenes administrative things? A little bit, but not heavily. And so this is where I feel like we get to choose and come back to our sovereign truth and knowing of like, is this supporting? Is it helping? Is it hindering? Is it true for me? Am I using it from a place that is actually coming from like the scarcity grid that is basically telling me if I don't, then I'm not going to have success? Because that is inorganic. Like that is a distortion literally right there to then hook you in to use something that may not be in alignment to you. And even outside the context of AI, just in the greater online space in general, if you're hiring people, joining programs, doing things out of a place that otherwise you're not going to heal or you're not going to be able to succeed or you're this or that, I'm like, that is not true. Like, that is literally pulling us and hooking us in, which I feel like a next kind of part of this conversation could be us maybe outlining what are some of the top ways, either us personally or what we're seeing in the grid or with our community, like some of the biggest kind of hooks that we're most commonly seeing. Because I think a lot of women are like, yes, I vibe with this, I get this, I'm seeing it, I've experienced it. And I feel like there's all these like subtle ways that you and I have like really noticed and experienced as well, where these hooks kind of come in outside of the more talked about, kind of broad areas that people are maybe starting to pay attention to. So I'm curious, and I can riff on some too, but which ones come to mind for you?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's so funny. I actually received that same thing. I was like, we need to talk about this piece of if you don't use AI, you're not going to be able to keep up. And I meant to like bring it up earlier and I didn't because it just didn't come into the flow. And then you brought it in now. So I love how in sync we are. And I think it's such an important piece because to me, absolutely, that is inorganic. That's a false like belief system. And I think it's so important that we really look at people's belief systems and what they're projecting out. Because here's the thing, like that's literally the system working through someone to say, if you don't do this, if you don't get this right, if you don't do this, you're not going to be successful. Hi. No, that's actually not true. And that's why it's so important to connect to your God ordained belief systems of like how you're actually templated and designed to co-create. And if that is like off-putting to you, please listen to that because I think one of the hooks as like we're going into this is like, if it feels bad for you, like that's a key indicator that your energetic field is like, this is not aligned, right? And it doesn't mean like, because sometimes we are challenged to grow and it might be like, oh, we need to work through something. there's a subtlety to it. But one of the greatest hooks is like, you got to come in and do this, or this is not going to work for you. Or if you do this, and it's kind of like using this systemic control of getting you to believe into like honestly like a group think. You can think of it as like an egregore, if you know what that is. It's like this collective kind of like, it's the best way for me to describe this. It's like this collective cloud of bringing people's quanta and consciousness into it, and then it builds and builds and builds and builds, and then all of a sudden it's like this big thing that a lot of people are in, that it's like bringing in more, pain, suffering, loosh, like because people are participating in it, but you don't necessarily know you're in it until you're in it. And then you're like, how did I even get up? How did I even land in this? Like, what just happened? That's like kind of what it is. It's kind of like, oh shit, like I don't even know what happened. I just kind of got like in here and then I got like mind wiped to forget. It's very, it's amnesic. It kind of like makes you forget your truth and like what your purpose is. And that's why it's so important to stay connected to organic light and source, because that will always bring you back. Um, so I think that's
Okay.
one thing to recognize.
Like add a good metaphor, I feel like on that too. It's very similar and dynamic, and I think a lot of women will resonate with like an unhealthy dating kind of relationship where a lot of us have like been with a narcissist or this and that. And it's kind of that energy too, where at least that's how I felt after being in, while I was in it, and then kind of just when I first started coming out of being in a toxic relationship where I couldn't even like remember things. Like I literally had a mind wipe. And so there was a lot of like fogginess and a lot of you're just kind of moving through, but at the same time, it feels like you're in this weird, sticky, kind of different frequency zone. And then you can kind of come out and like almost, and I see this a lot with women where it's like we almost don't remember like how traumatic it was or the things that happened until we're kind of on the other side of it. And then we start thinking like that was really fucked up. And so I feel like a lot of us have, as you were describing that, like had those types of experiences, but we're not always seeing it, I feel like, as much in our business and the online world as maybe we are in like relationships, whether it's like with parents or relationships with significant others. But it's the same kind of playbook. It's the same playbook too as like just the bigger collective. And as you were talking too about making decisions in these things. It's no different than say during the whole COVID era and people are like everybody's getting vaccinated, so I guess I have to get vaccinated or people are doing this, so I guess I have to do this or the school system raises us to be good little employees who should want a white picket fence. And so it's like as all these things are happening, it's this is just a microcosm in the online world of the macro. It's the same playbook. But for some reason, I feel like we haven't, even as conscious leaders, been having a discerning conversation about that same thing has been applied in this world. Like we've literally been moving through the same kind of things. And just like the COVID era, it's like a weird collective amnesia where people are like, oh, I just don't talk about that. Like we all know what happens, but there's not as much conversation about it where we just kind of compartmentalized and move on, onto higher timelines and other things. But there's like a residue that's there. And that's what I was really sensing as you were describing it. So I'll pass that back, but I felt like some of this other examples around that point wanted to come through as well, because I think a lot of women will resonate with other versions of this that they've experienced in other areas.
Totally. I love the way that you describe that. And that's very, very fitting. And I think it's really important to understand that the online space, especially, wants to keep you online. It wants to keep you hooked into it. So that way it is fed and it exists and it operates the falling grids. So this is so important to understand. It's just like the 3D matrix in that way of stay codependent on me, stay codependent on the system. So that way you always need me, you always feed me. And then it, makes you forget, right? This is a mind control system. I'm gonna like it is.
Yeah,
This is what it
call
is.
it what it is.
Yeah, it's a mind control system. And, for those of you who are kind of like newer to like understanding these dynamics, I just feel called to like read my post that I wrote. I shared it. I wrote it last year. It goes more deeper into detail of the mind control system around this actual grid, but you'll then be able to connect the dots of like understanding how it then permeates the field. Because remember, like it's it's powering up the fallen grids of like connect people into just hooking into these things instead of going out into the world and creating things and like actually living life outside of it. It just wants you to stay assimilated into it and to just be consistently consuming rather than creating what you're actually here to do. And there's a balance of I am going to go into this container to support me in my spiritual process, in my mission, in understanding business. These things are all important to do based on your mission, right? To learn, to grow, and to be in spaces that actually support your growth and help you step into what you're here to do, your mission, your assignment, what you're actually here on this planet to do, to embody and to emanate that out into the world versus things that are just like, oh, just keep doing this to keep you on this hamster wheel of whatever the thing is that you feel or was implanted to like make you believe that this is what you need to do in order to be successful and really looking at that. And so I think it's just important to understand, like Jenna was saying in the beginning, this is just another form of the control system. And if we can like remember that, be like, okay, I understand that's what it is. Cool. I know it. I have that awareness, and now I can choose to, right, interact with it from a sovereign way, see it, get what I need, and also choose to put myself into spaces that are really going to support my destiny of who I am as a leader and that really are reciprocal. And that is really important of like the reciprocity. Is this a reciprocal space? Does the energy feel like it's actually flowing? Do I feel good? Or do I feel drained after? Do I feel bad about myself after this? Do I feel like something's not sitting right with me? And here's the thing, don't bypass your intuition. This field that we're speaking about, this grid, it wants you to bypass your intuition and your connection to source. So that way you outsource, you leak power, and then you're not actually in that fullest alignment. That's what it wants to do. So I think with the residue that you're talking about, that's something that we're going to be clearing out in the ceremony because a lot of times the intuition is bypassed and we gaslight ourselves of like, well, this person knows more, or I should follow this, or that person has this much years of business experience. Yes, there are things you can learn. You have to be able to extract what is actually for you and then know like that actually is not something I want to participate in. And also be able to walk away from the spaces where maybe you're like, I got what I needed. It's time for me to exit out and just start to realign and ask God to guide you into the spaces and the destiny helpers, the people that you're actually here to walk with. Like Jenna said, walking each other home. And it's like, call into that because you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to be on your journey alone. You get to actually be in spaces that are designed because you have people, and this, the way I express it is like, for me, in like Sanctuary of Sophia, my temple, I have a mantle as part of my service to humanity. And like I have souls that I meant to support under my mantle of my leadership. And those souls are meant to come in to learn from me, to co-create with me. And so I think it's important to understand that as New Earth Wayshowers and leaders, we all have spaces that we're cultivating that are outside of this fallen timeline grid matrix machine that we can create for the aligned souls who are like, I don't want to participate in any of that stuff. I'm ready to step into something new, to co-create and to really be in that beautiful devotional service to God's divine will for humanity that benefits all. And that's what we're doing here. And that's what Unhooked is about, is we're stepping out of this. We're no longer participating and we're connecting in to communities and people who don't want to be a part of that. And we're saying, this is what I stand for. This is what I represent. This is what I'm creating. And we're creating that space. And so as I like witness it in the field, it's like, that's the shift. And that's what we're doing. Yeah.
I feel that too, and I feel that I know that in the bigger control grid, when you think about, and I said before, how it's really training people to kind of be subservient employees who, don't question things. Another thing that that whole system is designed to kind of set the benchmark for is like it doesn't want innovators. I mean, our system's not really set up even for entrepreneurs, but even within like kind of the entrepreneurship innovation category, it's all very controlled, and it's definitely not set up in like a new earth kind of co-creative, reciprocal, like, beyond just transactional kind of energy. And so when I think of what has happened and how it's been gridded in the online space, there's a lot of what I would call like bare minimum energy. And so as everybody's been like trying to keep up and compete and innovate and like bring in the AI and do all these things, like it's like below bare minimum a lot of the time. And so whether I'm like reading somebody's sales page and I'm like, I can't feel their heart, I can't feel their essence, I don't see their thought leadership, like this is literally just AI slop. Or even if AI is not involved and it's just people kind of carbon copying and like copying one another, it's like, or you go into a program, and I know we've both been in those spaces. I'm sure lots of women watching this have been in those spaces where it's like literally below the bare minimum, like where people aren't actually there to like truly support you. They just want the sale. And then there's not really much on the other side. And so while we don't need to be in victimhood of that, it's just being in the awareness that like when you kind of zoom out and look at all of that, that is not a environment that is set up for like innovative new earth leadership. And it's doing the opposite. It's normalizing doing the bare minimum. It's normalizing not bringing through like your full expression. And so it can slowly kind of hook into people's own mentorship and containers as leaders, where it just like lowers the bar a little bit, where we don't need to be on the other side of the spectrum either, where then we are back in non-reciprocal relationship to territory. So if like you're super over giving to clients, you're like over giving, to this, you're like slowly kind of draining your own life force being in dynamics, which I know I've been on that side of the spectrum. But it can also flip to the other side of the spectrum and actually have us in a mindset of like, oh, well, maybe I don't need to show up this much or in this way. Maybe that's not normal. Maybe that's not necessary to kind of go above and beyond in a healthy kind of way. So it like pulls us and hooks us back into this more like 3D linear transactional energy where, basically us with clients or clients with us, it's like just a relationship because there's a financial exchange, and it's not going into like the deeper relationship that we all crave and that we're all here for. It takes us just into that basic energy instead of in more of the mission territory, the bigger ripple of impact. And so if people are just doing the bare minimum to like keep the money coming in, like this is going now into like a lack of ethics kind of territory where people sometimes you can't even like quite put your finger on it. It's not like there's one specific thing or moment. It's like this subtle siphoning from the field because like there's bad energy hygiene. There's like a lack of energetic containment. It's just like not held with intention. And so sometimes things are just kind of messy and unintentional. Sometimes things are just like straight up, non-existence in terms of like onboarding, delivery, offboarding, in these different ways. But clearly there's a lowering of the bar that's happened. And I want to be like super clear that the solution to that is not just like, let's just stay in the same sandbox and just build nicer, tidier castles, so to speak. It's actually like, let's go over here in a new sandbox because that sandbox is not only tainted, but it's by design. So it doesn't really matter how beautiful the sandcastles look. If you're still playing in the same grid, it still has the same overarching energetics that are like coming down into it in terms of the types of clients you have in your field, the type of mentors that are available to you in that field. So when we actually move into a different realm altogether, this is where a lot can shift. And it's also easier to find, or not even find, but just align with the right clients, the right mentors, the inner circle that we're describing, because lots of us are already moving actively over into this new realm, this new grid where it's just like what's happening right now, where you don't need to bypass what's happening. Like my perspective is it's the same because it's that microcosm of what's happening in the greater world. I still interact with the world. I go into the grocery store. I have a driver's license. I own a car with insurance. Like we're still in this transitional time. And this is where I feel like it comes through what we're talking about. There's a transition of power, though. There's a transition of like, where is the energy going? Who's building what comes next? And you don't need to, as an example, denounce having a passport and a driver's license in a current paradigm where that's still playing out to be a sovereign woman. And then just be like, yeah, it's like all or nothing. It's like you can still interact consciously and discerningly while actively building what comes next. So, in terms of the online space, you can be over here building what comes next while still using social media and like being on these platforms. You can still be posting, sharing, interacting, but in a very different kind of energetic field, which means we're not taking on what's going on over here, but we can witness and create outside of it. So that was just a little bit of a transmission that, popped
Yeah.
off based on this whole conversation of just how all of these hooks are kind of playing together.
So good.
So good.
Yeah. Yeah, I love all that you share. This is so important, and I'm so grateful it's arriving in the space because these are all things to really contemplate and to notice because again, once we see these things, we can then choose to either participate or not. And, you know, as you were speaking about all of that, I also was getting this download and kind of a bit of a pivot, but not entirely around, well, this experience is also for women who have gone into spaces where they've been also violated spiritually. So I think this is something that we really need to like bring through here because I know that this experience of Unhooked, it's not just for entrepreneurs. It's not just for women who are building businesses right now or at all. This is a really big piece. And I was having this conversation the other day where I expressed this. I was like, no, this experience is also if you've gone into a space to learn, to grow from a mentor, from someone maybe you wanted to learn a modality from, or you went into a healing container of
Therapist or,
XYZ.
Mhm.
Yeah, or a retreat. Okay. That's even stickier because with in person, right? Or maybe you went and sat in a medicine ceremony with someone who was false light and was not in integrity and didn't hold the space, didn't have energetic hygiene, wasn't sourcing, didn't have prayerful intention of the field, wasn't actually holding the field. This experience is also going to support you because there's a lot of spiritual violation happening in these types of realms where people who actually haven't been initiated spiritually are teaching about spiritual concepts and they are creating a lot of damage, unfortunately, for a lot of people in their spaces. And this is more of like my realm, right? Of like mentoring women and teaching women, right? Training women in grid work, training women in priestess arts, where you have to be really, really conscious of where you're going in to do this spiritual work. And because of the field work ceremony that I'm going to be facilitating, that we're co-creating here in this space, I think it's really important to speak into the spiritual aspect of this because for people who haven't, especially for people who haven't worked with me, they're like, well, what is Alasia doing in my field? Like, what even is that? Right. Like, I just really want to express that the importance of honoring someone's free will in a space and ensuring that you're working from divine will and you're not manipulating someone's field is really important. This is really, really, really important. It is not okay to spiritually violate someone, to project on them, to bring through some type of projection that you psychically received from where that's again, where are they sourcing, from? Okay. It's really important. Like not every, intuitive piece of guidance that you receive from someone, it might not be organic. That's false light working at its best, where false light seeds in some truths with lies. And then you believe, you're like, well, this was true, so it all must be true. That's how it works. And it's very, very damaging when we're receiving from someone who is operating in the false ascension matrix and then they bring through their frequency, their energy, and it's actually that synthetic AI light. It's actually not coming from God's source. Someone's not a pure channel. And this is something that I've gone into the depths with all of my initiations and trainings and in this type of work and really holding a sovereign temple space for women to reclaim their power is this spiritual violation that happens in a lot of these spaces that no one is talking about, where someone is doing spiritual things behind the scenes, or they're going into these spaces and they don't have good spiritual hygiene, and then they're holding or influencing, if they have a lot of clients or in their spaces or a lot of followers, and then unfortunately dark forces, the enemy, like they're moving through someone, being utilized as a tool to influence a lot of people to bring them into a fallen timeline. And that's also important to take note here. So if you are a woman who's gone into spaces where you feel like you've been spiritually violated and you're connected into someone or a container that you still feel is plugged into you, and maybe this shows up as you still have dreams about this person, okay, maybe you have flashbacks, there could be ungodly PTSD loops that are occurring in your field that you feel you're still being impacted by. These are the things that I'm going to facilitate the healing within this ceremony to help really clear your field, and you're going to have the opportunity, the sovereign free will decision when you go into this of I am choosing to unhook from these people. And again, we're not naming names or demonizing anyone. We don't want those specifics. This is for you to understand, and your reality, things will start to come up for you where you're recognizing, wow, actually, I still have some quanta that's left. I still have a part of me that's hanging out in that container, or from that experience or that retreat I went to where the facilitator, shamed me in this space, and I never fully recovered or called my power back from that. You're going to be able to do that in this experience, and you're going to be able to do it that in a way that really honors your dignity and can alchemize that experience where you're not, being re-traumatized or looping in the victimizer experience, but you're really like noting, yes, I went through that. I experienced that. I'm going to alchemize that, call my power back to me, and I'm going to be able to move forward with dignity and grace, knowing that this is now medicine that is, part of my toolkit that I carry as a sovereign woman who's gone through these experiences and can really understand what is like. And we're going to hold space for that because it's important. And knowing that anytime, if you've ever been spiritually violated in any type of space, online or in-person experience, you can unhook from that. You can recover from that. You can heal from that fully. God will rehabilitate you, your light body. There isn't this is just what happened. Now I have to live with this forever. No, God can heal all things. And that's really what we're going to be focusing on in this ceremony, so that you can really call in and feel that stability from God around your own process and being able to move forward without carrying any of that density with you into the next season of your life. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so powerful, sister. And yeah, all of it, yes to all of it, because a big thing, and this is something I talk a lot about with my clients, is it's so easy for us to get identified where we kind of label like all parts of us being disempowered, where I'll hear clients say like, oh, I am, pulling in the I am presence in real time, where it's like, I am not good at social media, or I am, not sure about this launch, or I am this, I am that, which to which I usually say, well, first off, it's just a part of you. That's how I like to think of it. It's like kind of parts work, where I'm like, well, is that true? Is that all of you who's feeling ick? Is that all of you who's feeling disempowered? Is that all of you who believes this or that? It's like usually no, it's like a part of us is feeling a certain way or experiencing a certain thing, which to me directly correlates to the hooks too, where it's like a little part of you left here, a little bit left there. And so it's like all these like subtle little hooks, oftentimes things like you were describing, we consciously feel like maybe we've dealt with because we removed ourselves from the space. We're no longer in there. We're no longer paying that mentor. We're no longer following that person or doing that thing. But it doesn't mean that there's not still almost like a thread where you feel like, maybe originally there was like a thick rope connecting you to a person or a place or a space, and you like feel like you cut the cord, but actually no, there's like a fish line, like a true, like a needle thread line that's still connecting you here and there. And you stack all these things up, and they're all slowly just lowering down our free will and our expression. And as you were describing the projections too, and just energetic hygiene, it was giving me flashback examples that I feel like might spark things for women of just how small these little things can be. Like it makes me think of a couple years ago. I was checking into an Airbnb with my husband, and the woman who owned this Airbnb was this supposed healer, blah, blah, blah. And we're like literally unpacking, like bringing our bags out of the car. And she like walks up, pokes him in his chest, and she's like, "You've got trauma in there," and like offers him a healing session on our table. And my husband is like pretty discerning, but it like took him off guard almost, and almost like he had this like momentary lapse of judgment, which I feel like we've all had that at times where even though it like totally gave him an ick, he was like, okay, and he did go up onto her table and let her do whatever fucking energy work she was doing on him. And I feel like because his higher self was like really looking out for him, like there wasn't necessarily any negative consequence of doing that, but there was definitely like again, it's like a little hook that happened there for him temporarily that he had to call back that he didn't fully realize was even there from such like a small interaction really in the grand scheme of things. And that woman had like terrible energetic hygiene and projection and just all of those things. But that was just a moment. That wasn't like even a paid program container kind of thing, but there was a hook there. Versus at the same time, a contrast was I went with my husband like a year and a half ago to a pyramid while we were living in Mexico. And while we were physically there, it was okay, but I was definitely feeling like there was some off energetics and things going on there, but nothing super obvious. But in the days to come, I was actually feeling quite unwell physically. And I was doing my own practices, my own clearings, but still something was kind of lingering physically. And our landlord at the house we rented was a very lovely, I feel like very energetically pure woman who ran a healing school in Mexico. And you could just like feel the difference because she came over and she like felt it right away. But it wasn't like a projection poking me in the chest energy. She's like, "Did you go to the pyramid recently?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did." And she's like, I feel like there's like an entity, like there's something there. Like, can I help you clear that?" And I was like, "Please." And, I gave her the consent, which is a big part of it too. And just even the way she asked me and like the purity behind it. And she helped me clear that. And all my symptoms went. Like my headache was gone. I felt so much better. And so this kind of to me shows like the difference in the energy of like, where is somebody coming from? Like, how are they approaching you? How are you interacting with them? Is there consent? Are they honoring your free will? That really makes a big difference. And I feel like a lot of us have these hooks. And one other thing that came through on this is because many of us have experienced, these quote negative experiences, I feel like another way a hook is often still there is we don't want to do to others what was done to us. And so there's a lot of women who like are running businesses and healing and doing all this amazing work in the world, but there's still like a part of them that they kind of turned it down an octave instead of up in terms of their own expression, their own genius, their own gifts, because they're just like a little worried, even if it's not conscious, of like, oh, what if I do to someone like what someone did to me? And so there's actually still this like distortion hook there, because if you are coming from a pure channel and the right intentions and you're consciously choosing what you're doing, there would be no reason for you to not like say share your truth online or be honest with your clients and like create these loving spaces. But I feel like there's a lot of women who kind of need that part of this message right now, that there may be just like a part of you that's been left behind in some of these past mentorship things where you had a not great experience. And so you don't want to do that to others, but you're not necessarily going to do that to others. But there's like this like little hook that's distorting things where you might be like looking for the strategy and the mentor and the people who are like going to help you figure out like why have you not blown up on Instagram, or why do you not have more people in your offers, or whatever it is. But it actually is more of a capacity internal situation that's going on, but it actually comes back a lot more to energetic hygiene. So if you worked with a mentor who had poor energetic hygiene, and that gave you an ick, but you have good energetic hygiene, like there's a difference that's happening there. There's a difference in how you're creating your spaces. And so these are just like how subtle those hooks can be, where somebody can be like doing all the right things and wondering like why are they not experiencing, whether it's like the healing, the growth, the vitality, the energy that they're looking to have, even though they've left the space or they've done the thing, but there's just these little hooks that are still there that are impacting us. And, like we talk about, like this is just a microcosm of the bigger grid that's happening. And so if we're intentionally shifting and growing inside of that world and kind of building outside of it, so to speak, it's the same version of that happening within the online coaching space where there's a major opportunity and beyond an opportunity, like a deep soul calling and assignment from God to really be building the infrastructure through our own choices of how we lead ourselves and others. That I feel many of us are feeling that call where you've seen the online drama, like you've seen the cancel culture and like the weird tribalism that plays out and like the victim savior, the drama triangle, like the things that want to just pull us in when what we're really craving is deeper discernment and self-responsibility. And this is why with Unhooked, we're not doing like a naming, shaming, circle jerk situation. Like this is deep work because we're here to move the conversation forward of like where are we going as a community of New Earth women from this point forward when we can see these things and we're ready to unhook and move forward the New Earth timeline together.
Yes, yes, yes to all of that. Thank you for bringing all of that forward. I feel like that's such an important piece of like really the intentionality of this whole experience and like God placing it like on our hearts to create this and to, yeah, to really begin to open up the space as well because more of humanity is awakening and they actually need, they really need leaders who are embodied in safety and integrity, have good spiritual hygiene, and can hold the field for the transformation because people are wanting guidance and God, like, listen, God creates you so that you can be able to actually like bring forward your most potent medicine, your magic, and that also serves the entire collective space. So when you're given a platform, especially, or even like, for those of our sisters who like aren't necessarily in business creation right now, but they're like, I know I'm here to like serve the new earth and to like share my gifts. Like you have a purpose and there can be things that come through that want to just keep you in the old system. Like that's literally what the old system's designed for. And so like Jenna said, this is just like another version of that. So I feel that as we move in through this next passageway, really like through the summer, through Lionsgate, as we prepare for all of these big energies coming through, it's an important thing to remember that your experiences of what you've gone through are going to help support you in your next assignments, your missions, your true purpose, what you're here to do. And that there's no need to like shame or judge yourself either for being hooked into these things. I think that's also important. Like we've all been through it. It's very sticky. The way that I also teach false light, when I teach about false light and how to determine like if you were learning from someone who was hooked into false light, or maybe you were applying false light teachings and then you realize, oh shit, like this actually isn't organic. It's literally a rite of passage. That's just the way it is. It's like, unless you wake up and you just are immediately led to someone who is an organic channel and like organic teachings, which is very rare because the false light matrix is literally like it's part of like the attempt to hijack the ascension process for humanity. So like you kind of have to go through that in order to get to the other side. This is very similar to that. It's the same thing. So I think it's important that as we're becoming more aware, we're stepping out, we're moving into a new space, that there's a release of any judgment that you're holding, and not judging or like shaming a part of you that maybe participated in something. And like you can always move through, especially the final piece here that's kind of landing is if you brought any of these dynamics into your life, or maybe you took on somebody's belief systems, false light teachings, way that they do things, and you're recognizing, wow, I was out of integrity, or that wasn't something that, I would participate in now, you can always really come into this really deep relationship with God of like atonement and really being like, I don't want to do those things anymore. I don't want to carry that into my life. I don't want to participate. I don't want to put that into the fields, whether it's to my own containers or into just my own relationships that I maybe took on from someone who was operating within that. You can come into that space of like forgiveness, atonement with God, and really God will release you from it. Like that's the power of Christ. It's like that will be released through that. And then you can move into the new space and you don't have to take any of that with you. None of the shame. You can release all of that. And like you said, that hook of like, I don't want to cause any harm. Essentially, that's what that is. Because we've all been on calls or in spaces where we witnessed the leader of this space gaslight someone, shame someone, like manipulate, project on someone, spiritual. I've witnessed it spiritually violate someone where we've been the witness and you knew it wasn't your place to call out that experience because it's not your container, you're witnessing it though. And then that can also, traumatize you of like, I don't want to do that to someone, or seeing someone who is like in a high position of authority. Maybe they have a big following, right? Because that's how we, do the metrics is like, well, if they have a big following, it means that they're really good at this. That's not what it means. Let's be clear on that. They might just be really good at marketing. It doesn't mean they're good at facilitating spaces or transformation. And we witness that leader who is doing harm to someone else, and we witness that. And that can be also a very like timeline crashing experience where the person is not who you thought that they were. And you have that interaction with them either online or in person where you see how they lead and you recognize, wow, okay, my perspective of this person has now shifted, and then having to actually process that. And that can be painful. And we're going to also hold space for that. So, all of this that we're sharing here today, this is what the field, this is what Sanctuary of Sophia and the energetic architecture with like the pillars of resource women, like Jenna's containers, it's like we're holding this frequency of alchemy where all of this is going to be able to be alchemized, even if we're not talking about it. This is the intention to help liberate your field of witnessing some really fucked up shit in these spaces that maybe never was actually talked about, processed, where we don't have to process every detail. Your field is going to receive the healing. It's going to receive the alchemy. You're probably already noticing it if you've made the decision to come in, because as soon as you decide to come into this, it's going to start working for you. And even if you've energetically decided, you'll notice, oh, I can feel the process has started. And then as soon as you say, yeah, I'm coming into this, you make that decision, the medicine's going to start to alchemize. It's already happening with the women that we've been connecting to who have come in, who've said, yeah, I'm already feeling it. So just notice if you know this is for you because you can feel it in your body and you feel like, yes, like use your discernment and really pray on it. If this is something that you're meant to come into, you'll know, you'll feel it. It'll feel like a sovereign soul yes. And you'll know this is the space for me to really unhook and to step into, the next chapter. So yeah, it feels like it's the medicine's already flowing and moving even just through this conversation today. Yeah.
I really feel the same, and I feel there's women who are receiving this right now, and whether you've had a recent experience, like I literally have had women message me this week where they're like, "Oh, I almost joined this program," and they're like, "If you don't join and well, bro marketing, if you don't do this now, you're never gonna have success." Like literally, where I'm like, "What?" Like, ugh. And so whether you've had a recent experience where you've had an ick, you've had things that are weird, you've had things that made you feel gaslit, shamed. You saw the distortion up close, the smoke and mirrors. Or if you're somebody who's been like actively dismantling this within yourself and within the grid for however long now, this to me, if you feel the yes in your soul and in your body that you're meant to be here for that, like you said, Alasia, like you will know that you're meant to be there for us to go even deeper into this and to like cross through the threshold to the other side, which really to me is the overarching, like, what are we doing together in Unhooked? What are the women coming with us to do? And it really is that transition of power. And I see every woman who's a part of this, who comes through it, now, in the future, who even watches this transmission. It's like we are like the nodes who are now building the new grid and rippling that out into the collective, into the landscape of the online world. And that's why, to me, it's also a much more effective, like higher consciousness approach than just people posting about what's wrong, to move into a more solutions oriented approach that brings us into also sovereign leadership with like a future focused, more visionary approach to like what can we actually do and what's on the other side. Because to just simply talk about it is not necessarily changing it much beyond just bringing more awareness, which is kind of stage one. But there's deeper stages that are meant to happen. And I know women who are coming into Unhooked, just based on who's come in so far, it is a spectrum of women. It's entrepreneurs, it's new entrepreneurs, it's women who are seasoned, who have been doing this for a long time. It's women who just have had their own personal experiences and they're ready to clear that. And it's also women who've been like actively seeing this, dismantling it, shifting it, and now they're ready to like come together and step into the next iteration and evolution of this deeper grid work, that's really meant to happen and come together. So yeah, it's very beautiful. It's very exciting. Like I'm buzzing.
Yeah, yeah. I'm excited too. It's right on time, honestly. It's right on time and I trust it. And what's been pouring in for us, just even behind the scenes, because there's so much more that's been happening than,
It's
we're
just a
gonna
snippet.
this is just like a tiny glimpse into it. But I also just want to say like it's been so much fun to co-create with you and do this and like really have a sovereign co-creation and collaboration that is like rooted in devotional service and divine will. And it's just been so beautiful. So I feel like just the experience for me personally, like as a woman within this realm, is like it's been so healing and nourishing for my soul and spirit to be able to do this. And there's just so many blessings coming in for this experience and for the women who are getting called in. And I've been really feeling it. And I know we both have been. And there's just been like, shoo, download after download after download coming in and like evidence coming in from all of these ways. And like, it's just been really exciting to see like how God is moving in the field as well. Like as this builds and we are moving toward that experience of reclamation. So I'm really excited. And yeah, thank you, Jenna, for today. It's been so beautiful to share space and bring these codes through for our communities.
Yeah, I absolutely feel the same. And for everyone who's been with us for this transmission and co-creation, thank you for being here with us. And if you have already jumped into Unhooked and you're here, we're so excited to journey with you and to guide you through this experience. And if you are feeling the call and you want to jump in and you're not yet in, we will drop the link. And of course, our inboxes are open if you have a question for one or both of us before you jump in to the space. But once you feel the yes and you want to join us, then we welcome you inside. And if you've been with us for this transmission while it's live and you are able to comment on it wherever you're watching it, then feel free to share your breakthroughs, your takeaways, what's landed for you. We'd love to hear from you. And thank you, Alasia. I feel the same about getting to co-create together, and it's such an honor. And thanks for taking time to record this with me.
Thank you, sister. Blessings. So excited to see all that is to come.
Yay, thank you, everybody.